All right, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, October 27th. This is a special joint meeting between the City Council and the Tourism Business Improvement District Advisory Board. We do have a quorum of City Council. Councilmember Johnson, Heading, and Smuckler, and myself, Mayor Irons, are present. Councilmember Makowetsky will be joining us hopefully in November. Looking forward to that. And for the Madam Chair, Michelle?
Yes, hi. It looks like we have a quorum here as well. We have Joan Solu, Taylor Newton, and Jack Smith and myself. So
Great, thank you. Kind of got the formalities out of the way. We'll go into public comment, and then we'll do some opening remarks, and we're going to we're looking for about 5:45, so we have a gap in between the City Council meeting. So I did want to welcome everyone to this joint meeting. It's always very important for us to get together and do this. Some of you may be aware we did a joint meeting between our General Plan Advisory Committee, our Citizens Finance Committee, Public Works, and Harbor Board advisory boards not too long ago. It was very productive and helpful, so always glad to be able to do that. And we'll turn it over to the board members for opening remarks, and then over to the TBID board. So, Christine, do you have any opening remarks?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for being here. Sorry we were a few minutes late. We had a 3:30 closed session meeting. Welcome, and I wanted to just thank you for your time serving in this volunteer position. It does take up a lot of your time. This is a particularly complicated, not that any of the advisory boards are easy, but there's a lot of moving parts to tourism, and there are a lot of things that you're making decisions about that require a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge, and I know that you bring that to your meetings, so I appreciate that. And I also think it's great to see some folks here. Since we're two hoteliers and two non-hoteliers, we've had really interesting conversations lately on your board. I know you're looking forward to completing your full board of 7, and we're all working hard to help recruit people to fill out the hotelier positions, because that's also really an important part of the TBID, likely because it's the stakeholder group that you're representing. But it has been an unusually interesting process to have 2 and 2. So I think that's been it's been good to hear those conversations and to watch those as they go forward. So we've had productive discussions with the previous boards we met with. We hadn't really realized what we were going to end up, when we said let's have a few meetings, and then we had good feedback and good conversations. We don't often have a casual setting to do that, so it's nice to do it. And we've had, I think, good outcome on the previous joint meetings we've had the last 2 months or so. So looking forward to this one as well, and just open to hear, to listen, and then to share concerns that you may have, share it with us, and then having just really good open dialogue. So thanks.
Thanks, Christine. John?
Good evening, or early afternoon. Great to have you here as well. Michelle, welcome to the chairmanship again. And Joan, thank you for the time that you spent with me in the past tenure that you've had as chair. I appreciate that. I appreciate the openness and sharing of information that we've had since I began my tenure here, and look forward to continuing that with Michelle, who I believe we have our first meeting day after tomorrow to begin that relationship. And so I look forward to open dialogue, a continuation of a good relationship, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks, John. Noah?
Yes, thank you. I do want to thank you as well for doing some great work. It's clear that the things that you have implemented and the staff with the Tourism Bureau has been very effective for the city. It was something that was a bit of a risk for us to take on initially, and coming together, you've proven that it has returned results, and that's something that's very important for us, obviously, with TOT being a key component to our budget and how we finance things around the city. So you all are working very hard, and your meetings go almost as long as ours do, which is impressive. And I think the timing of our meeting tonight's very good, because obviously we have quite a few challenges ahead of us, which is good, with the countywide TMD discussion, the evolution of how we're going to interact with that, as well as with our local model. So tonight's discussion I'm seeing as a great place to have a forum and better communication about where we could go with all of this into the future.
Great, thanks. And I too wanted to thank all of you for serving. I do have a brief statement that I read at our previous joint meetings that I thought is appropriate to read, and then we'll open it up to public comment. And then we'll go to opening remarks from our board, and then we'll go to public comment, and we'll try to wrap up around 5:45 to give us a little bit of gap between the joint meeting and the council meeting. But at our previous joint meetings, which was very, very productive and open, this is one of the statements right out of our policies and procedures that I'll just read. Welcome and thank you for your interest in serving on one of our city's advisory boards. By serving on one of Morro Bay's advisory boards, you can help plan and guide the city's future. It is important that members of the advisory boards understand the functions and responsibility of a board member. We hope that you find serving on the city's advisory board personally satisfying, and in the process gain invaluable knowledge and experience. And it goes on that the City Morro Bay Municipal Code empowers the City Council to form boards and commissions to assist the City Council in legislating and managing the affairs of the city. From time to time, citizens' advisory committees are appointed to meet its specific topic and need. Their varied roles provide significant opportunities for formulating city policy and creating public forums for meaningful community participation. So that's right out of our policy and procedure document, which is, it's great to get a refresher on that and open with that meeting. And then, Madam Chair, I'll just turn it over to you for opening remarks before we go to public comment.
Okay, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the board. Taylor, do you have any opening comment?
I would like to say that this is my first advisory board being on. I was on the tree committee for a number of years, but that's not technically an advisory board, although maybe it should be. Anyways, I've really enjoyed being on this board. It's very challenging, surprisingly challenging for me, the timing that I stepped in on it. I love having me and Jack be on it with the two hoteliers. It's been great conversation, and the different point of views I think are it's really serendipitous in a way. I think it turned out because it's been so beneficial on a lot of conversations to have these wide-ranging views, and I think that what we have here is very valuable.
I'll make mine quick. I'm going to pretty much echo what Taylor said, except for I was not on the tree committee.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, I'll just make it hopefully very brief. I'm hoping that we can get a lot done tonight in terms of grappling with some communication things that we've all had going on. So I'm really hopeful that getting everyone in the room together, I think this is a terrific idea, getting everybody in the room together, allows everyone to openly express ideas and thoughts. One of the things that I always get concerned about is that we have a great confusion in the community on the difference between what the TBID is and what transient occupancy tax is. So I would just ask that as we move through this to keep confusion from occurring tonight if they're referred to, and likely when those two things are referred to tonight, that we refer to the Tourism Business Assessment District as the assessment district funds, and we've referred to transient occupancy tax as TOT, because they are delineated. One is a special fund, very similar to the Cloisters Assessment District Fund, and we do refer to that as the Cloisters Assessment District. So we should just legally clarify those as we move forward, so that we're all on the same page as we move forward. So I'm just hoping that we can all agree to just calling those by the names that suit them, so there's less confusion in the community, and I'm looking forward to all the conversation, including any that might be confusing. So thanks.
Thanks, Joan. Yeah, I think that's a good point. We are here tonight talking about the Tourism Business Improvement District. It's an additional 3%. It's not the transient occupancy tax. So there are two different things. And I know there was an article in the Tribune recently about Amgen, and it referred to that our $16,000 was coming from the TOT, and it actually is not. It's coming from the hoteliers and the TBID. So I can see where there's a lot of confusion out in the general public when things are misprinted in papers. So since we're here tonight and you brought it up, I think that's a good point to bring up, Joan. So moving forward, I think we'll try to establish that it's our Business Improvement District assessment and not TOT. And I echo what everybody on this member has said, all of the members here. I'm excited to finally sit in joint session. I don't think we've ever had this in the tenure that the TBID's been around. So it's really nice to get to sit and talk. I know a lot of times we don't get an opportunity to know as a whole because we can't talk to you all as a whole. So I think this is a really great opportunity for us to all find out what your concerns are and our concerns and try to meet in the middle. And, you know, we all want success for Morro Bay. That's why we're all here. I wouldn't be taking time away from my kids if it wasn't for that. So, and I know neither would anybody else. We all are very, very busy. So I appreciate you inviting us out to do this, and that's why we all made the time to be here. And I hope we can be positive and move forward and make everything successful for all those people that are sitting out there and everybody out on TV. So thanks if anybody's watching.
Thank you. And with that, we'll open it up for public comment for those who'd like to speak. And we'll be cognizant of that. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Robert Davis. I want to speak tonight to the study report that staff presented to Council last month exploring alternative models for promoting tourism. I don't want to advocate for or against changing the model that we're using now. It seems to work. Other cities use other models that also seem to work. The one thing that concerns me is that whatever we do has to be built on trust. I support Council's direction to staff to collaborate with hoteliers before we move forward with our final decision. And I agree with the Chamber of Commerce's recommendation that we need a healthy community discussion about the relationship between the hoteliers, the city, the Tourism Bureau, and the Chamber. And to me, the key to this process is proving that council, staff, and hoteliers trust one another. Here are three things that would show me that we can build a successful partnership. One, that staff and the advisory council sit down together and rewrite the staff recommendation as a collaborative effort with a recommendation that they both support. Second, that a majority of Morro Bay hoteliers vote to accept the recommendation of the joint staff report. And third, I think it's important that the hoteliers step up and fill the vacant advisory committee positions that are not currently filled. Whatever you choose to do as a council, I hope that your decision will be based on demonstrated, provable mutual trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Red. Anybody else for public comment?
My name is Homer Alexander. In early 2012, at the request of the previous city administration, I used a list that was provided by John Lambeth to contact 15 TBIDs prior to the formation of our Tourism Bureau. I selected the 15 cities based on their size or their coastal location. 14 of the 15 were independent, and the other one was a branch of their local chamber. Since you're all bright, it makes no sense to me how you could possibly think that moving the Tourism Bureau from the private sector to the bureaucratic umbrella of the city is going to make it more efficient or cost effective. At your September 22nd study session, the city manager's presentation justifying taking control of the hoteliers' self-assessment fund was partially based on the need for additional transparency and increased oversight. I'm not sure how much more transparent the Tourism Bureau can be. Their meetings are televised. There is a city council liaison whose responsibility it is to communicate back to the full council any issues or concerns. Senior members of the city staff have attended their meetings. You approved the Tourism Bureau's budget twice, once during their annual stakeholder report and again in conjunction with the approval of the citywide budget, both of which are presented at public meetings. If you don't feel you have enough insight into their operation, I'm confident the Tourism Bureau will give you whatever reports in whatever frequency that you may want. You only need to ask. When it comes to oversight, none of you, and I'm including senior city management, has had any previous experience in running a destination marketing organization. So what value could your oversight possibly add? The existing model for marketing tourism is working well, not only for all the businesses in Morro Bay, but also for the city's treasury. Don't destroy the Tourism Bureau's momentum by making a change that's unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Homer. Anybody else?
Good afternoon, Chuck Davison, the President and CEO of Visit San Luis Obispo County. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Just a few brief comments that I wanted to make. Really continue to be excited about the progress that Morro Bay is making in tourism and the role that it's playing in selling the countywide tourism as a whole, including our recent partnership announced last week with AEG and Morro Bay on Amgen coming here for the first time ever. We believe that the current model is working and is done in a way that most logically affects the business in both from a private and a nonprofit organization standpoint. With that said, I know that I've heard some preliminary conversation about should this get rolled into the city, the possibility of the lodging partners shutting down the TBID in general, and then some subsequent conversation from there of TOT possibly being put on the ballot for an increase sometime the end of next year. Realizing that's all hypothetical, I just want to make sure that there's some clear discussion around that. If the TBID was to essentially shut down in June of next year and a ballot initiative for the following November, leading to collection in that January, you've got a 7-month gap of no marketing of Morro Bay from a tourism perspective at all. That would be a huge risk based on the heels of production of your current TBID and the efforts of not only this advisory board, but your current director and their staff. But it would also lead to some collapse in tourism, even based on the new Visit California TV spot, Amgen, which will take place in May, and other subsequent events around tourism. We want to encourage the board and the council to maintain a full tourism director in whatever they do moving forward, that the person is an expert around tourism, and that person's at the helm in order to advance the initiatives of Morro Bay from a tourism perspective. And we also want to encourage the council to really seek and establish, regardless of the effort they move, a detailed plan on how the business structure will be run and how it will advance tourism going forward, should they consider consolidating it inside to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Good evening. Ashley Akers, Word in Marketing. I, too, am really excited to be here today and listen to today's discussion. I think it's necessary with working with the TBID for this past year and hearing City Council's concerns. I just want to say and remind everybody we have a lot to celebrate this past year. We had some really great success, and a big part of that success was with the current model that we're working with. And so really allowing us to be efficient, proactive, and really respond to certain opportunities that arise quickly that need a quick response. The Bureau allows that style of communication to happen. And so I would just encourage us to continue this model because we would like to see the momentum continue. I know that our team is very excited and very much enjoys working with Morro Bay, and so we really want to keep the train moving. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Thank you for all coming out tonight and for your comments. And now we'll get back to our joint meeting and discussion between the boards, which is looking forward to that. And no different than some of the discussions we made during the introductions, it was very productive with our other advisory boards, with the Harbor Advisory Board, which I think that was our very first joint meeting with the Harbor Advisory Board. So that one was always productive as well. And as far as leading off with conversation remarks, Noah, do you want to lead us off?
Sure, yeah, I would. And we've heard quite a bit of conversation and speculation about what's our goal from the city council side to review structure of tourism and marketing means and where we're going with all of this. There's been a lot of things I've heard in the community that I didn't think was accurate. And the way I interpreted our goal and what I see us embarking upon is a healthy analysis, looking at something that's been very dynamic, also that is very important to our financial health and our economy, and just considering ways we could continue to improve it. I do believe that we, with the transition from the old Community Promotions Committee to the current structure, made some very significant improvements and brought along some excellent expertise and abilities into fill a space that and a need that we didn't have in the past. So I think we have come a long way, but I personally think we have other opportunities that we can pick up on, and some of those in my thoughts about analyzing the different options would include, of course, events. There are some loose ends that I see here that we could start to tie in together. Events is one, economic development's another. I will continue to talk about infrastructure because I think as the hotels have talked about the quality of the product of what we have in the lodging industry, I think we have obvious needs in the community to keep on reinvesting into our infrastructure, whether that's our park system, our streets, our emergency services that will respond to help people that are here visiting. There's a lot of need there, and we're working to try to address those, but we currently, with what we have in place, are never going to catch up. So I personally would like to see us analyze and consider new structures that could help us reinvest in multiple ways. I have said in the past that I think at some point we're going to bump into the end of what is the most effective amount of dollars to throw at marketing itself. I think there is a limit to where marketing is not going to return on that investment as strongly as it has. I'm talking with some of your board members. I would agree that we're not there yet. And it would be interesting to make sure that we can get there before we start making very strong or quick decisions and changes. But I think this is a great opportunity to reassess, and I know staff's following through on our request to open a dialogue. So that's where I see us being at. I see a lot of common ground. Both of our success with the lodging industry, with the city itself, and our budget depends on tourism. And I think we all want to be careful to not upset something that is so important in that way. Regarding a TOT increase, I personally don't think that would be an effective approach. I could see a future where there was a TOT increase with a reduction of the marketing assessment, but I'm not sensing that we're there yet. I wouldn't expect the lodging industry to want to go there either. That would be a loss for all of us. So my thought is let's work on what we know is the common ground. Let's not be afraid to consider additional adjustments that will improve our efficiency and help us address some of these missed opportunities.
Thanks, Noah. John?
Thanks, Noah, for that. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for the opportunity to interact. Thank you for the public comment. Always appreciate the public's input. I want to start with just a reiteration of, I think, what hopefully the viewing public has seen out there, and we'll see again tonight with the report that's going to be given by the director, and that is a very successful agency operation that has dramatically increased the dollar flow to the community. And as we all know, tourism is right now the economic engine of the community, and we're looking at ways to diversify that, but it is, and so I'm for one wanting to see as many resources inure to making that successful as possible, or even more greatly successful because of the contribution that it makes as a whole. And as a result of that, just a couple of observations. As I've gone out and spoken with a number of stakeholders and attended the stakeholder meeting and just tried to get some feedback, what I hope to see happen with regard to whatever comes out of this recommendation from staff and the discussion that council will have, and the input that will come from the community and your board as well, would be one, an alignment that would allow for us to really consider marketing more broadly the city as a destination. And I hear routinely that the TBID is concerned, and rightly so, by virtue of the assessment dollars that Michelle eloquently explained early on, with hotel marketing. But I do see a changing emphasis by the board, your board, on destination marketing, and I think that's critical for success in the future. In other words, bring them to the community and then market however you do individually with each of your organizations as stakeholders, how to get them to your specific hotel. My broader interest is how to get more people, both nationally and internationally, to recognize and understand that Morro Bay exists and come here. And so that's one of the goals there, too, is an alignment with economic development. And I'm not saying there has to be one model that's absolutely perfect that makes that happen. I think if you've seen one model, you've seen one model. And there are many successful models throughout the state. I've done a lot of research and reading and comparative benchmarking. And, there are many ways to be successful, and I don't think there's any one way to be absolutely successful all the time. But what I do see as I speak to people is a willingness to effectively make change happen to the benefit of not only our individual selves, but the community as a whole. And again, this is the economic engine, and so as I said earlier on, I don't want to support a new infrastructure that's going to cost more, throw more dollars at something that's not going to be effective, and take away from marketing and promotions. The third thing that I'll add is I think feedback on, as much as possible, metrics for success is extremely important. And I did, at your stakeholder meeting, the only one that I attended, I think that may have been the one where the young lady who was up talking about promotions spoke. What I would like to see, and I said it then, would be specific metrics on, what is a successful TBID marketing effort for a community? What does it look like, and how do you measure and monitor it? And there may be 20 different ways to do it, but what out there is the best way to do that in terms of getting information about our marketing program when we spend, $600,000 on marketing and $50 on promotions? How do we know we're being successful? How do we measure that? How do we report that to council? How does council then understand that that is providing a return on an investment, a significant investment? And the other thing that does concern me, and I'm not saying that this is the fault of anybody on the board, but having a full contingent of board members is extremely important, I think, for the TBID. Having 4 members just doesn't cut it. You got 4 great members. You need 3 more. And I'm not sure why other people are not stepping up to the plate. I've asked a direct question, and I hear we're really busy individually. Well, I know these guys are busy, and they're putting in the time and the effort. And so I'm just going to say directly to you hoteliers that are out there, and those hoteliers that might be listening, we need leadership. We need you to step up and join in and get on this board, because we need a full contingent to represent Morro Bay if we're going to be successful. And so that's just a plug for Michelle and her group. And then I guess my last comment would be, I'm really, really, really looking forward to a report on how we're doing with our partner at the county level. We have agreed on some spending to support that. Again, I'm looking for metrics to demonstrate what successes that are being achieved as a result of that investment, and hearing directly from the TBID board members what they feel are the synergies, the successes, and the advantages of being part of that as we go along, because we want to assess that investment as we move forward. So again, thank you for your work. Thanks for allowing me to make the comments, and keep doing what you're doing, guys. Thanks.
Christine?
Okay, thanks. Oh, it's great to hear what council thinks too. Wonderful. We can't talk to each other either. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, what I heard, what I think, I want to just make some brief comments, but I want to then not talk long, because I want to go back and make sure we hear from the Tourism Bureau as well. So what council has asked staff to do in our citywide goals, goal number 6, G, was simply to look at the Tourism Bureau relationship with the city, evaluate, analyze, and present to council alternate models for partnership between the city. So that's what it says. It says evaluate, analyze, and present to council alternate models for partnership. So that's all. That's like a line, a few words. So that's what the staff had to go on, and that's what they've interpreted through step 1 of the initial conversation. This is step 2 of the conversation. In between, though, there probably have been micro steps galore between staff and hoteliers, staff and the board, myself and members of the board, myself and other folks in the community who run hotels, not just in Morro Bay, but broader and other places in the county. So there's a lot of conversation going on, so I think that's the number 1 thing that's positive. What you don't hear anyone saying, to my knowledge, and I'll say this really clearly to respond to Mr. Davidson's comment, I have not heard, nor has this council said, we don't want the TBID. And that is nothing that has been communicated. Maybe it's a rumor. Maybe people are remembering that the TBID can disband. I mean, it's a business group and it has stakeholders, and 50% plus 1 of those business owners have to agree to be self-assessed. So that ultimately is that business group's decision if they want to be self-assessed at 3%. Maybe they want to be self-assessed at 10%. Maybe they want to go down to 1%. That's not something that the city is engaged in those discussions, except to say that the mechanism for creating a large amount of marketing dollars can be successfully implemented through the Tourism Business Improvement District process. So that's a large chunk of money that if 50% plus 1 of the hoteliers want to engage in that large pooling of marketing dollars, there's a function for that, and the city will then be on your team to collect those dollars from all hotels. So that's a benefit, absolutely, to the city. It's a benefit to those individual business members, hoteliers, to the city, and I'll just say clearly from me, there's no interest in disbanding the TBID. I haven't read that. That's really important. The other thing I want to mention is what also I have not heard said in any conversation is that the city wants to, nor thinks it can, move forward without a tourism marketing professional. I certainly have not said that. I didn't hear anybody up to me say this here. I haven't seen that in a staff report. And that's just simply, again, not my personal point of view at this point in the process. So I understand the value of a tourism marketing professional. I would expect that a tourism marketing professional would continue to operate in the city to do the function of marketing the city of Morro Bay under the structure of the TBID. So those are two things I wanted to definitely clarify that I haven't heard anyone say. That doesn't mean they're not saying it. It doesn't mean that it's not things that people are talking about or end game kind of conversations, but I just want to clarify that I haven't heard that from the council, and I haven't heard that from staff, and I certainly haven't heard that necessarily from the board in my discussions with the tourism board. I think also, though, Joan makes a great point in talking about definitions. And even tonight, I double-checked my agenda. We are here to have a joint meeting with the TBID, the Tourism Business Improvement District. So those folks, you folks have your kind of almost, well, your oversight hat on this evening. You're making sure that the stakeholder money you've collected from your hotels, all of them, is spent appropriately according to law on marketing the city of Morro Bay. So that targeted funds go to increase heads and beds, people like to say, but it's to getting folks for overnight stays. That's what the TBID assessment dollars are for by law. So, is there some variability in there? There may be, depending upon the guidance of the TBID, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can use that money to do other things, because there's a law that we're following along to ensure the stakeholders are appropriately, that the money is being spent appropriately. So I think also then the discussion sometimes, and I hear these terms interchangeably as well, we want to be super clear that this is a TBID meeting, they have their oversight hat on, and they're not specifically going to be talking about whether they love Verdun or want Verdun to do something different. That's who you saw Ashley Akers come and speak on behalf of Verdun. That's not what we're here to talk about tonight. It's great to hear that there are exciting things happening, and we'll hear about that, the presentation at 6, but that's not what the TBID's role is. Now, where I do think it's confusing is when you take your hat off from TBID and the same people mirrored back to us put on their Morro Bay Tourism Bureau hat. So now you're acting as a 501c6 organization that has a contract with the city to provide marketing services. So when we talk about the city going out and looking for another partner or reassessing a structure, we're really talking about the existing structure we have now. We're already sending that out to contract. We have decided the model that's been working here, that we've chosen based on things you heard from Mr. Alexander talk about the process of looking at a list of 15 independent TBIDs, or he said, but I may be mistaken, maybe I wrote TBID and he really meant Tourism Bureau. So the ones that were looked at, based on public comment we received tonight, were independent operating tourism bureaus. So I want to hear from you all who were here if I'm interpreting that correctly, if the 15 on the list that John Lambeth gave were all independent operating tourism bureaus working under the direction of a TBID. Yes.
Did you want me to answer?
No, I think you might as well answer.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I wasn't sure if that was...
I know. I decided that I thought it was going to be a question. Right when you asked me if it was a question. So,
well, because I'm used
Let's
to
not
public
get too carried
comment
away, though. Let's kind of keep it back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
How about
I
this?
just-
How about
I
this?
could-
How about
I could see
this?
it get
That's a
carried away.
question that I would love to hear a response to, because I'm, again, trying to also make sure our definitions are consistent across the board. So let's talk about that coming back to us and the fact that, you do wear two hats. It's the same board. Both boards are Brown Act boards. We are able as a city to ensure that the Brown Act is followed and all the other open meeting laws are followed when you're under the auspice of the TBID. But then when you go and you do your business as the Tourism Bureau, and it's likely at the same table the next 1 minute in between your meetings sometimes, that public meetings responsibility does fall on then the tourism staff to ensure those open meetings are being followed the way the Brown Act has to be followed. So this is part of the complexity of our current structure, and that's fine because things are complex, and that's okay as long as we understand the complexity and we understand our definitions. So I would love to hear some feedback on the tourism. The TBIDs exist all over the place. Many of them do then create a contract relationship with a particular type of structure. So if you have some input on that, that would be great for all of us to hear. And then anything that kind of talks a little bit more about, this, well, feedback, I guess, on the idea of in the community that there would be any desire to disband a TBID from the city's perspective, and that, hopefully clarify that you understand that the tourism manager expert would still be part of any mix, and that would be essential. So, and then last thing I'll say is this reminds me a little bit, I know we're having lots of conversations in the community and things are up and things are down, but it does remind me a little bit of how we had this similar conversation when we were trying to decide in our community whether we wanted to go with the TMD, the countywide tourism district. And, at the end of the day, we ended up pulling together and going that way, but our pre-discussions were all, there was pro and there was con, and it was very strongly held views that were shared. And, I think at the end of the day, people came along to going with the TMD and realizing the benefit of the countywide system, but we definitely wasn't something that we easily got to in the city of Morro Bay. We had a lot of discussion about it. So if we're feeling like this discussion's getting a little bit, emotional or, clarifying things one way or another, I think that I looked to how successful now already in the first several months of our relationship with the county TMD. I'm hoping that any discourse and discordant discourse we have now will then at some point come together and have a real, a positive teamwork feeling about where we get to the conversation at the end of the evaluation and analysis. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So we'll get back to that question. I'm going to, thanks, Christine. I'm going to try to keep my remarks to 3 minutes. And a lot of your comments I'll share, and there's some of them I'll just go over real quickly as we try to keep everything going so we can get done and not be short on your input. Clarification on the goal as far as reviewing model, pretty clear that we wanted to review this. And by saying that, though, and I want to echo the comment of, do we want to disband the TBID? I think that's the way I kind of understood it, and then the city would implement the 3% TOT. So my recollection, and I don't believe there's anything out there from myself anyway, or the rest of council, that we would not want to support the TBID, period. I think if we didn't, we wouldn't have gone into the TMD, which we went through, to Christine's remark. And the other part of just TOT in general and where we're at by number, whether it's 10, 12, or 13, I've said in the past, and I'll say again, ideally, we wouldn't need to increase our TOT, but our TOT is growing as a result of a good product that we're providing. So, if we need more revenue, we're seeing the growth because of the tourism success. That's my own thought on that. And considering where we're at, I would, not sure I'd want to definitely support any increase in our TOT anymore, to be honest. But that's just where my remarks are on that. And then getting back to the relationship and the commitment as far as tourism and the city and economic development. Obviously, I think the city we need to commit to investing in our city, and I think we are. As the TBID is investing in marketing, branding, improving and getting more return on that investment, I think the city is doing the same thing. I mean, if we don't have to point just to the bike pedestrian bridge as a thing that, a product, something that's improving the quality around here and attracting more folks. Every little investment that we make, I think that is what, if we look at our goals and what we've laid out from our budget and what we want to invest in, absolutely. We can't have a vibrant tourism economy if the city isn't investing in the product in which we live. So I think that's the part of the partnership that we, as a council, are working through. That's my experience. And then, as I'm watching the clock, I will close my remarks and turn it over to you, Michelle. As I'm looking through my notes, I'll just leave it at that and let you, with your board, with your remarks, and we'll glad to hear from you. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the board. Jack, can I have you go first? Go around the table. Jack.
Sure. One thing I keep seeing and hearing with regards to the program being folded into the city is there's just a lot of, I want to call it, bad information or misinformation being bandied about around the city. Everybody I talk to has heard something different. I think it would be great to see a complete written plan, not just here's our ideas, but a complete written plan of how it would work so everybody be on the same page. I do like the idea, I do like hearing the council saying that no matter which way we end up going, that we will have a tourism professional because on running the program, because we're long past the day of just grabbing somebody that is already employed by the city. Okay, hey, you're the new tourism guy. We need that professional tourism person. And I think that's about all I have for now.
Taylor. Look through your notes there. You ready?
Okay, so I wanted to start with what Red Davis was saying. In work, I've been working with the city since 2009, both publicly and coming to city council and tree committee and through the nonprofit I run. And I've always agreed with what he said about trust. And I feel like this council has given me personally faith and trust. I think that's what we all want, and I believe in that. So I want that to be the core of whatever I say or whatever we do, trust, because we're all in this community together. In saying that, I wanted to say that, since Sam's come on, my period on this advisory board isn't even a year yet. I don't even think I've made 9 months yet. But since Sam has come on, the functionality of it, if I were to look at it as a business and what Christine's saying, kind of when I have my MBTB hat on, it is kind of like a business, right? He's invaluable to me in that position I have. So having him is really important. And I realize since he's been here how the decisions I make and the decisions we make have an effect on TOT. It has an effect on that 3%, and it has an effect on that 1%. And how all three of those things, like what Jamie was saying, how like if we're winning, then we wouldn't need to increase TOT because it's successful. I also would like to point out with the Amgen, like what Chuck, Amgen's awesome that we're having. I've worked with Amgen through my nonprofit. This will be hopefully our third year working with them. And the Amgen thing happened because of this TOT and this 3% and this 1%. Money came from the 1%. The money came from the 3% to make Amgen here. So it's hugely important that this board and this TBID functions well. So going back to staff, having the staff be part of this is without a doubt essential. And since Sam has been here, and being up there and being able to talk with him, it feels like it clicks. And I've really enjoyed that. It made me enjoy this more. I wanted to say, I have a lot of notes here. I don't know where to go from here, but I did want to say that, I wanted to go back to Noah. Besides us, I know Noah. And I love that he started off with the word speculation. And maybe that's because he and I are in the same generation, and that word means so much to my generation. This disbelief and speculation is, for me, when we're talking about what could be and when it's not. And that was another thing, John. You kept on using the word metrics, and when I heard the word metrics, that means data, and that's evidence. And speculation is possible evidence that hasn't happened yet. But metrics aren't. I mean, I would hope that the metrics that I would be using to make bets or to make decisions as a businessman would be real data. So I agree with you on the metrics. I think that's so important that we get that, and good metrics. And but I do want to say that speculation part, concerns me, especially when anybody uses any argument based on speculation, even if it's something we purchased, like good speculation, which is data that we're foreseeing into 5-6 years. I hope this year is El Nino. We'll see. You know what I mean? Speculation. I think that without summarizing that for you, I think you can kind of summarize it yourself. You're all intelligent people. Somebody else said that out there. But I think you get my point for now.
Okay, go ahead, John.
We're in hospitality. We're being polite over here to each other, asking, "Do you want to go first? Do you want to go first?" I'd like to thank all of the public speakers for coming forward. I do think that we have a lot to think about and consider here. One of the things that I thought was interesting and a unique idea was Mr. Davis had the idea of staff and the advisory body working together to come to a mutually agreed upon report that could be provided to council. I think that's really important probably to the stakeholders as well. And the reason why I say that is because if this board or any advisory board is making a recommendation to council and they put a lot of work into that recommendation, and they're hopeful that that work will not be ignored. They're professionals on whatever aspect of advice that they're giving, whether it's the GPAC or the Harbor Board or the Tourism Business Improvement District. And so there's an expectation level that they were placed there on that board for their level of expertise regarding the issues that would come in front of them. And so it's likely that even if the advisory board has a split decision, that they would feel pretty strongly about their recommendation that they would be putting forward. And they would hope that, in all likelihood, they would hope that that recommendation would not be ignored by council or by staff, and that all three groups could work together. So I do like Mr. Davis's approach. In terms of metrics and measurement, I'd like to answer that a little bit. It seems like in the city of Morro Bay, we use a lot of revenue. I think we have to remember that the assessment district itself is really the only board that is hyper-focused on creating revenue for the city. We really do want to see that line item go up, up, up. And I can clearly say that in the last 6 years, this year, once again, we hit a record all-time high TOT, $2.9 million, roughly. That is it is over a full $1 million gain in 6 years. That's a whopping number to hit, and we're really proud of our city and all of the partners that went into that. The bicycle path, everything contributes to that. Think of tourism as a since we're talking about Amgen, let's look at the bicycle wheel. Everything that goes into producing that revenue is a spoke in the wheel. And so all of the partners, the restaurants, the events, everybody's a spoke in that wheel. So when you're talking about how do you measure that metrics for media, how marketing is used, there's a lot of different approaches. They include how many people view, page views, for example, on websites or advertisements that are electronic. How many people pick up the magazine and read it, what the viewership is of the magazine. If it's a media release, how many media publications picked it up and how many views did that create for Morro Bay? All of those things are extremely important to measuring metrics. There's not a single thing that measures marketing metrics. It's pretty dynamic. And maybe that should be part of the next stakeholder meeting is how do we measure these metrics? And that would be probably a good place to have it in the spring. So in terms of measuring that metrics, I'd like to work with the community to clearly define what measurable metrics are for media. And for marketing. And I think we have some great professionals on our team that can help us with that. In terms of 12 or 15 TBIDs that were looked at and their structure, I believe what Mr. Alexander was saying is that 12 or 15 assessment districts were looked at to see what their marketing structure was, and they were marketing with a destination marketing organization, with one of them marketing through the chamber. That's what I heard, and that's without reading the report, what I recall from the study that was done. The study was done in 2012, I believe he said, so I would have to go back and read the full study. It was provided to the city. It was part of, that study was part of 2 or possibly 3 workshops that were held from the entire base of the community to move towards the direction that and the formation that we're currently in with the DMO, Destination Marketing Organization. So we did have a lot of community input to get to the process that we're at now. And then I would say that I appreciate the opportunity to meet with all of you today because it does allow some great back and forth. And I'd ask that the council allow a year with a fully seated Morro Bay Tourism Advisory Board to work with the newly hired staff to encourage open and transparent communication process so that we can further develop a relationship and tourism. And I'd ask that council allow for that transparent communications to further develop. I would also ask that once those tourism professionals are placed on the board, that they're allowed time to understand the metrics themselves of the destination compression prior to making a decision for a recommendation on how they think tourism should be structured. Some of the discussion today further solidifies the concern that the assessed businesses may not have a strong voice from what I heard from both public comment and from the back and forth. Making sure that their voice is heard is pretty important. We're being told that the advisory board will be listened to, and that's the goal, is that the advisory board and the public and the staff work together and create a clear and transparent process. Because when it comes down to it, we can do all the marketing we want, and we can have all the meetings we want, and we can listen to lots of workshops and get every stakeholder that we can get in the room. But what this really comes down to is the guest experience. And we cannot in this process forget the guest, because the guest is a visitor in our home. Morro Bay is our home, and we invite these people here. We spend $600,000 inviting them here every year. And the experience for them, they shut their eyes and they think about where they want to take their grandkids, and they think about, well, we'll jaunt over to Morro Bay. So inside of that, their experience and what the city does with the increased TOT that they receive is extremely important. So the reinvestment into the community is one of those spokes in the wheel, and we can't forget how important all of those spokes are to the guest. So I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Joan. I'm kind of like Taylor. I got notes everywhere, so I'll try to combine this and keep an eye on our time. I'm going to kind of just go through everybody's, and I'll just kind of address everything I've got here. I'll start with Noah. I agree. I agree with her. I agree hugely with it's like a spoke. I mean, we all have to work together, and I think we all know I wear a lot on my sleeve, and so I've been frustrated up at the board, and you guys see that side of it. And I think what's frustrating for me is the lack of not understanding that we have tried, anything that's asked out of this board, I feel like we've pretty much done. I feel like anytime we've been asked to jump, we jump, and we've done workshops, we've invited John Lambeth, we've done Director of Tourism workshops. So over the years, and I know we have different council now, and different staff now. But I feel like over the years, we've always been, I felt like a pretty approachable board. If there was something on anyone's mind, we've tried to address it. So I know this last year I've kind of taken a back seat, hoping other people would fill the shoes, and I was trying to back out of chairship, and here I am back in the chair position. So, anybody looking out, like, we're an open board. We want to be transparent. That's why the Tourism Bureau, every meeting we have is live on TV. We don't meet back at the Bureau office in secret doing things. That's not, every single meeting, unless it's a closed session, is on TV, and it's live, and it's open for public comment. We notice everything. So I just want to remind the public of that and remind everybody of that, because I do, understand that's a concern Christine brought up about we're wearing our TBID hat and we're wearing our Bureau hat. It's the same hat every day I get on. So I'm the same person, and I'm pretty open about, I don't make different decisions on the Bureau that I would the TBID. I'm a pretty open, on my sleeve gal. So I think that's why when Noah, you brought up about events and economic development and infrastructure, it's been repeated from all the council. We get that. We talk about that a lot. Our last meeting was talking about events and how can we combine it. So I think that's why I enjoy this meeting, is getting some direct feedback on what are we missing? What's the missing? And I know there is this needing to connect the dots a little bit. I would say, I even had written like 5 times when I looked back at my notes, let's look at what we have and how we can improve it. Let's not get away from something just because, and that's what worries me. I hate to see the Bureau, we put a lot of blood, heart, sweat, tears, everything into creating this nonprofit for a reason. There was a reason we went to that. If you look at other communities are actually looking at how to go to nonprofit, because there is an efficiency factor of that. So I want us to look at what we have and let's try to improve it. I'm not saying the TBID's perfect by any means. I'm not saying we can't improve. I'm not saying we can't connect the dots better in the community. We need to work as our partners to do that, and we need leadership, and we need people to work together to do that. And I feel like our door is always open to try to have that happen. So I'll kind of rant on that one a little bit. The other thing, I think Christine, Joan answered your question about TBIDs. I think he looked at business assessment districts and how they were ran. I would urge Homer to maybe send out the report. It was back, him and Eccles had done that a couple of years ago. There was a workshop that we had at that time. I do think it's important we evaluate and look. And like she said, metrics, there's all different ways of measuring occupancy, RevPAR, ADR. I know we were batting the city back and forth on that. I love Red Davis's idea. I think it's a great suggestion. I will not lie that I was very blindsided by that staff report, and I felt very defensive of it. And I apologize to the whole community. I was a little defensive because I felt like that was my name and I'm being accused of things, and I didn't even have I didn't see that. I was very blindsided. I don't watch the news all the time. I don't sit here and watch council meetings. I go home, I work. I don't hear everything that's going on. That's partly my responsibility, but I'd like a little feedback too, because we might be able to help and communicate. That's why these meetings are great. But I will not lie to say I was not blindsided by that. And I was very, I felt like, gosh, why am I doing all of this if I'm going to have a staff do that? So I think Red's suggestion of having a staff report maybe done by both staffs is not a bad idea. Or maybe, I remember reading back, and I could be wrong, it's many years, but I remember seeing staff reports that would kind of have 2 sides to stories. And I just feel like this last staff report's very, it was one-sided. It wasn't, pros and cons. It was kind of like, this is how we see it. And I think it's important to see the pros and cons to things. When you go to a ballot measure and you look at it, you see pros and cons. I think it's important for us to see both sides. So I'll reiterate that. I think we need to work together. We're partners. I don't want to see the TBID go away. I don't want to see the hoteliers talk of it. I don't want to see the city talk of it. It's been successful. We need to make it more successful, and we need to work together to do that. So I'll bring that up also. And I think Taylor brings up a great point. It's about trust. We need to build that trust back on both ends. I think it's really important that both entities can trust each other. It's vital to being successful. I have to trust my staff has to trust me. It has to work the same way in this. Somebody said, we're running a business. I mean, this is a business. I don't care what anybody says. This is a business. Tourism is a business. And I will respectfully disagree with Mr. Noah of saying that you can max out your money. You're going to always need to be marketing and promoting. There are always new travelers coming out. So to think that you're going to put in $600,000 now and, I can leave it for a couple of years and not put more money, and maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but okay. When I wrote that, you're going to always need to be marketing. You're going to always need to be promoting this city. You're going to always need to market this city. You're going to always need to be waving that flag, hey, come here to Morro Bay and don't go to the place 2 or 3 hours away. And I think the city is understanding that, which is why now they're looking at this. They understand tourism is competitive. You've got a lot of people that are out there figuring out where they're going to take their families, and you've got to do sales. You've got to go out and get people, steal business from other communities. It's just where we're at now in this world, and I wish it was a little easier than that, but it's not. It is a full-time job. Am I missing anything else? And I also agree, Jack made a point about we hear a lot of misinformation. I think that's something that maybe we can work on with council of how can we educate the public and the general population better to understand what tourism is for our community, why it's here, the difference between the assessment district versus TOT. It's hard. When I read that Tribune article, I mean, I was stoked to see Amgen, and that was awesome. But then I read in there, and, I'm going, the general population thinks that that's the TOT money. They think it's their hard-earned dollars, which it's all of our hard-earned dollars. It's TOT and assessment district is the public's money. I get that. But it seemed like it was coming from TOT when you read through that article. And I know the city didn't write the article, but it just shows that there's kind of a lack of understanding. And it was interesting because 3 days later, there was a San Luis Obispo article, and they got it just perfectly correct. And I was bummed that Morro Bay wasn't part of that. I was like, man, they got it right. How is that? So, and one other thing to John, again, too. I will vouch on everything. Everything we do is destination marketing. I would challenge anybody, hundreds, millions of people that hear me out there, please bring me one advertisement we've done that is for a hotel specific only, and I will concede. But we have always marketed the entire destination as a whole. It has never been about bringing people into my hotel or Jones' hotel or his skate shop for that matter. It's been about bringing people to Morro Bay for exactly what Joan said, experience. People come to Morro Bay not for all of what we're here for now. They come from Morro Bay because we're the little lost coastal town that we want to stay this way. People come here because it reminds them of back in the 1950s and 60s. We're forgetting about the guests. We really, really are. And that's what I live and breathe every day. Every day, I told John when we met, I want you to come to my hotel. I want you to sit in that office and listen to what people say because it's really intriguing. People come here for that, and we need to remember that, and we need to embrace that and be happy about who we are and what it is we're selling, because we're not selling the Huntington Beach or the Newport. We're selling Morro Bay, and we need to remember that. Yes, and then I think that's everything, because I'm looking at the time. I'm past my few minutes. And thank you. I want to thank council also. I know sometimes I've spewed, and I will apologize if I do that. Everybody knows, and if my 11-year-old son is watching me, I always tell him, try not to wear your heart on your sleeve. And he gets it from his mommy. So, but it's passion, and I love this community, and I want to see us be successful. I'm an open door. I'm really not that big of a bite, I promise. And, thank you guys for reaching out to us and trying to solve this big, difficult issue. I think we all want the same thing at the end of the day. How we get there may be a little different once in a while. We all drive different vehicles every day to work. So it's a great example. But, I would urge everybody, let's not make some rash decisions. Let's try to work with what we've got and figure out a way that we can work. I agree. What somebody said about Sam, it's been great having the city back in the room. We had that many, many years ago. It kind of went away, and now it's been back. I said this a couple of times, and I'll say it again. If we had a city liaison for the last year, 2 years, we wouldn't even be sitting here right now. I think we would all be connected those dots, and things would have been moving a little slower, moving smoother, I should say. So I would urge us to not make any rash decisions. Sam's been a great asset. I think, we need to look at that, because I do think that's made a huge difference. And I don't want to see all of the successes go away just because we're not communicating maybe the way we should. Let's fix the communication and move forward, and not see a lot of the successes go away. that's it. I won't talk forever. Thank you.
All right, good. We're going to close because we have a few more minutes, closing remarks and comments, and then we're going to wrap it up, give us a little gap in between our council meetings. So thank you all for your comments. And there's so many remarks that there aren't. Absolutely, we all want to see us be successful. We've done some self-assessment in the city in the last year on several fronts, and I don't think this is a big problem issue. It's another look at ourselves, and this is just one of those steps to have that discussion. So I think we've got great input. We've got some more steps and discussions to make, and I think we'll get through that. But I don't think it's too big. We've been doing that, like I say, for the last year. We've been doing some self-assessments of the city in many different ways, and that's a good thing. So, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you all for being here and speaking from your heart. I think you really did, and that's the important thing. Trust is critical, and collaboration is critical. And so this is the first of, I think, hopefully many meetings quarterly that we'll have, and I look forward to the rest of those. So I'll see you Thursday.
Thanks, Noah.
Yeah, sure. You did misunderstand, Michelle. There is a need for marketing, and I don't think that's going to go away, but I think there would be a point where we're throwing dollars towards marketing where we've crossed a threshold that those would probably be better reinvest than other places. So that was my point there. I'm not saying we're there yet, but I'm sensitive to that because sometimes I see marketing as an arms race. And, of course, all the professionals love that, and they should. But it's my job to make sure that we're spending those dollars very carefully and reinvesting as necessary. So just along the lines of the opportunities, another one that I want to make sure we consider as we look forward is the regional marketing component, looking at day trips and local. This is part of the economic development conversation, of course, but how do we crack that? How do we advance that and make it effective? And I think there's some really amazing things going on here locally that is starting to help there, but we could be better organized with that. And going forward, yes, our interaction and return with the tourism marketing district at the county level is going to be very important, and we need to watch that closely to make sure we're maximizing our efforts there. As far as a plan, I think we all would expect if there are alternative proposals as we look forward into this, ways to refine ourselves, that the plan outlines some pros and cons, outlines how we would address overhead costs, where there's savings, where there might be some more expense. We know that right now you're contracting out for legal and for accounting and so forth. Would that make more sense for us to be doing that through the city? These are questions that we need to be able to answer, and the bigger what's missing question. And the other item that I think is exciting is with Amgem coming up. That's a great opportunity to come together and demonstrate that we can work together, identify maybe some better opportunities to work and pick up the breaks in the connections that we need to have in place.
Great. Christine?
No, I think that everyone has captured a lot of key elements, and I think having this open conversation has been very worthwhile, and I appreciate the honesty that's come back to us and from us to you. I hope you feel that way. It's been genuine conversation and trying to clear the air on some things that are being discussed in the community that don't necessarily represent this whole process of evaluation and analyzing. I think that I really like the way the mayor said self-assessment. That's what we've been doing. That's what Management Partners was in 2008. That's what it is again. We took time to really review our budget process and 10-year budget outlook. We hadn't done that before. And we also have renewed skin in the game. The city has skin in the game now in the economic development concept, and realizing that revenue is tied to city services. I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer, but I'm not sure we always made that connection. So having somebody who's in the role to focus on economic development for the city, it's natural. Then they look at all the opportunities. And our largest one is our TOT. That's our largest revenue-generating fund process activity in the whole city. So it's natural that we would take a look at it under this whole process of the city putting skin in the game toward economic development, because we have a lot to offer our citizens, and a lot of those things for quality of life cost, a lot of money. So in order to be able to continue to provide great quality of life here and city services that we can all trust in, then we need to make sure as a city that we're being responsible and looking at all of our revenue streams to make sure they're viable and sustainable. So we're definitely, I would assume, on the same page there. And if it's a benefit to businesses for the city to focus on economic development, then that's just better for everybody in the long run. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Christine. And with that, before we conclude, we do have an opportunity at our next meeting to have discussion, add to what we discussed tonight and take action on that. But tonight was an opportunity to have open discussion amongst the two boards. So with that, thankful for that, and we will adjourn the meeting, and we'll be back to City Council at 6 o'clock. All right, thank you. Ready when you are, Bob.